All right, and I think we are live now. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And this is a 6th episode of Rise in Unity webcast. And I'm extremely happy to bring on board one of the heavyweights on community building, community architect in Finland and in the Nordics. His name is Peter Vesterbacka. Hi, Peter.
Hey.
Great to have you with us.
It's great to be here. Great to be here.
Yeah, this webcast comes out of the feeling of inadequacy. I can honestly say that as a speaker and, hosting events and being out there among people. I finally lost my gigs, spreading the message of community, spreading the message of diversity, inclusion. And so I thought, I gave myself 2 weeks in that nightmare. And then I thought, what is it I do? And it came down to is the spreading culture of communities. Whoever you are, now that I'm in Finland, it's really important for me to share the experiences, the connectedness, the vulnerability that coronavirus pandemic brought upon us. And to sustain that feeling, I want people to be smart about communities, to be smart about how to be intentional, how to give back, because giving back is the most life-confirming thing you can do. And you can see this in volunteer power in anyone who is going through and fighting COVID. This is truly something special. And so I want to sustain it because we don't know what's coming yet ahead of us, the uncertainty, the economic crisis, and the historical predictions that there is a rise of racism, rise of nationalism, discrimination, what you name it. So this is a way for me to stay hopeful and engage my audience, engage the people who choose to follow and watch, and community leaders, makers, architects, visible and invisible, just like yourself. You're much more visible. And just to say, prove the point that we need to spread more culture of communities. And it's not fluffy. It's we spoke about it with a futurist. It's a mega trend. We spoke about on the volunteer level. It's a driving force in any country. It's empowerment and it's loyalty on a company side. Whoever engages and builds inclusive workplace cultures, that's really like you can feel it on a bottom line. So, and that's why, Peter, I thought to talk to you because you have a very big helicopter view of what is it you're doing in as a persona, as a entrepreneur, in many hats that you wear today. You speak community in business, in technology, in innovation, in education, and where Finland is at the heart of it. So I thought I could not have my webcast without you.
Okay. Yeah.
So how is the thing is with this episode is we want to hear your take on what is the future of communities, and you have an interesting take on branded communities. So, but before we go into that, I wanted to say, how are you coping with this quarantine and remote reality?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's again, I've been getting more done now than in a long time, I would say. So it's again super nice that everybody's online, everybody's reachable, and it's a good time to get stuff done. So been kind of like repeating the mantra of every crisis being an opportunity, and I think that there's an opportunity to do a lot of things. So there are a lot of things that you can't do, but there are a lot of new things that you can do. And I think that if you look at just, like the fact that we moved, 1 billion plus kids to, like remote education. So, everybody now is online. Okay, it didn't go, perfectly well in all places. But I mean, if I look at here in Finland, it took 2 days and we had everybody more or less like online, all the students, all the teachers, all the schools. And, that is a great example of the fact that there are very few things that are impossible, like when you really decide to get it done and when you have to get it done. I think that's like very important. And if you would have told people here in Finland or anywhere that, like let's say last year before the crisis that, oh yeah, we're going to move everybody, into this kind of like remote model and everybody will just do their school from home, and everybody will be online, and it's going to take 2 days. Then, you know, like you probably say, hey, you're crazy. It's like impossible. And there's, you know, this reason, that reason, you know, like it can't be done. And then in the end, it was very much possible after, you know, having to do it. And I think that now with the crisis, there are a lot of these kind of opportunities that, you know, we actually we launched this ambitious Africa initiative a couple of weeks ago. And we're now doing a lot of events, you know, with Rwanda, Kenya, Tunisia. Next week we have like Uganda, Mozambique, Ghana, and so on. And we're involving kind of like the local community in all the African nations, and we're doing all of this online. And originally we thought that we need to kind of like go to every, you know, of the 54 African nations, you know, more or less. And that would take a year. Now we can probably, you know, get all of this going and kickstarted in a month, and that would have been impossible without the crisis. And we even have, you know, super high level like participation. So we have government ministers from both Finland and you know, Kenya, Rwanda, Tunisia, you know, like so far, and then a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people from like the local universities. And I don't think that this would have been possible to do in this kind of time frame without the crisis. So for me, the crisis is also a source of kind of like opportunity, and I wouldn't say that it's kind of like without challenges, but I think that it's always kind of like what you make it to be. And I think that that's also what, you know, for me, being an entrepreneur, and that's also one thing that I keep repeating, you know, like time after time, that, I mean, it's just about doing things. I mean, entrepreneurs are people who do things, and that's what entrepreneurship is all about, that you actually, you know, you don't sit around and whine that, oh, we can't do this, you know, because of the crisis, and we can't do this. And I mean, that it's also the crisis is kind of like a good, basically, let's say, a catalyst, and it's also you know, showing you know, who is up to, you know, the task of getting stuff done, and it's always very easy to kind of like use any, you know, excuse like, okay, we can't do this because, you know, crisis, we can't do this because of, and there's always that, but I think, you know, yes, we have a crisis, and there's nothing we can do about it. You know, like we can't make it go away. Of course, we can, you know, like help by not running around, you know, like spreading the virus or whatever. But at the same time, I think that there are many things that we can do, and then we should focus on always on the things that we can actually impact. And I think that's something that, you know, for me, you know, we shouldn't worry about things that we can't impact, and we shouldn't worry about things that are not kind of like yet a problem. I mean, we deal with problems, challenges when they, you know, show up, and then we kind of like deal with it. So I think that is again, being an entrepreneur in crisis is actually not the worst place to be.
No, it's kind of using every opportunity as a perfect storm, and I have all the listeners who are here, please engage with us, and thank you for watching. I have my mentor and inspire Salameh Gorani with us. She's from now in California, and she says hustle, pivot, and growth mindset. That's she's also one of the big entrepreneurs in Denmark and in the US. I feel you know, you always are there for people in Finland, wherever they come from. You and I met 3 years ago at my first hackathon. I've never been in one, and it was a city outside Helsinki, Tuusula. They had that hackathon on how to make world's best school and to promote urban planning with the school as a catalyst for these intergenerational links, entrepreneurial links. And you are everybody's, let's say, motivator, and you're extremely approachable. And you have started a lot of different activities, and basically you become a spirit of all international students in Finland. What is it that really enables you to be that available, connected, and willing to be that also that connector for others?
Yeah, but I think that one of the things that I always I think that like no matter what, I mean, again, there's no reason why you wouldn't be like approachable, and why like why not? It's a little bbit like no matter what, no matter how successful or whatever, there's no reason to be an asshole, like. So I think that's kind of like just like personality thing that it's up to you, and you can then choose what you want to be.
Right.
But I think that's at least for me, like super important. And then I think that it's also for me, it's always you learn new things every day, and then you take that kind of attitude that you're always learning, and of course you're learning from others, and you're learning by doing things. So I think that is again just the way I always approach things, and I think that I don't see like many reasons why you wouldn't want to be kind of like approachable, and of course I know that for some people it's important to always be like busy and not approachable, because you're so important that you don't have time, and like yada yada. But I think that again it's choices, and then you just choose to be approachable and have the time, and of course you're busy, and you're keeping busy and while you're doing things. But I think that it's again it's kind of personal choice, and kind of like no reason why not. And I think that's good that you mentioned Tuusula. I think Tuusula is actually a brilliant example of, again, it's here in Finland, many people would say, okay, Tuusula, and you're like, okay, kind of like if you're not living there, then it's like a little bit like, who cares? But then when you look at like global perspective, I mean, Tuusula is kind of like a small city or like town next to a lake that happens to be like right next to the airport. So it's like 15 minutes or so from the airport, and normal times, not during crisis, then that means that you're 6 hours and the 15 minutes to the airport from Delhi, or like 7 hours and 15 minutes from Beijing. So you're like in the middle of the universe pretty much. And like in Finland, you might not look at Tuusula like that way, but when you look at it from the outside, it's kind of like pretty cool location. And how many cities next to a lake, next to an airport do you have like in the world? It's not that many. So I think it's actually very cool to see cities like Tuusula do all of these kind of like things, and most of the people here in like outside of Finland have never heard of like Tuusula. But it's
Right.
then when you hear, oh, it's like a lake, and it's like next to the airport, hey, that sounds like pretty cool. Again, yeah, it's things are always what you make them to be.
That's right, and you brighten things up like that, because everyone needs to feel we have a valuable product, we have a valuable event, and just because you show up, you really drive people, because you allow them to be themselves, allow them to be curious. And I think that's the part of being a community creator and architect. And we lived in Tuusula. It was an elderly home that was turned into a hackathon location, and it was done with Arctic startup. Dmitry Sarley was the driving force. I really respect him a lot. And then it was a 40,000 city that wanted to build a 20 million euro school and make the best out of that school. So again, connecting education, city planning, elderly care. So it's all cross-sectorial. Is this how you created, you're behind Slush, you're behind, co-creating Angry Birds, Startup Sauna, Fun Academy, Finestbay area. How is it that you come up with these interesting concepts and projects?
Yeah, I would say that it's learning by doing. So I think that's kind of really like at the core. But I think also if you look at a little bit, from my perspective, it's all part of the big picture, and there's like some kind of logic to the insanity, if you will. But it's there's And actually, one way I look at it is again that I started my kind of like career or like work at the original startup. So I was actually working at the company that Bill and Dave started in their garage in Palo Alto in California in 1939. Okay, and I always then say before my time, so I wasn't there. But that was Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard, and they started HP, so fantastic company. And I was actually fortunate enough, I met with actually both Bill and Dave when they were still alive. So they are fantastic entrepreneurs. So they started HP, fantastic company, but they also started Silicon Valley that you like mentioned there. So I think that having that kind of background, and when I was working for HP, actually many years, I used to go to Silicon Valley like once a month or so. So kind of like my way around, and it's a fantastic place. And I think that again, it's always great to be there. It's a place like full of energy and full of activity and amazing people. But also, having said that it's also kind of like important to understand how Silicon Valley works, what makes that tick, and that like ecosystem, because it's a unique ecosystem like all ecosystems, and then there are so many people all over the planet that they want to be Silicon Valley of this, Silicon Valley of that. And I don't know how many events I've been to and how many places where I'm told that, okay, we're going to be the Silicon Valley of China, we're going to be the Silicon Valley of Asia or Japan, or everybody wants to be Silicon Valley of something. And again, as I said, Silicon Valley, fantastic place, but it's already there, and you can't really lead by following. You can't lead by copying. So always, if you want to lead, that kind of like by definition means that you are doing things before others, and you're doing things that haven't been done before. Right. Of course, we should always learn from what has happened in the past. I mean, Silicon Valley, great place to learn, great inspiration. But then, if you look at Slush, we actually created. It was actually kind of like one reason, and kind of like the main thing there was that I gave a talk to about 600 students at Aalto University in 2007, so a long time ago, about entrepreneurship. And then I asked the students, okay, how many of you guys are going to start a company or join a startup once you graduate, or even before, which is like fine as well. Then in 2007, our best students here in Finland at Aalto University, out of 600, only 3 raised their hands. And of course, that's like complete disaster. I mean, it just meant that everybody wanted to work for Nokia or big corporation or the government or, something like that. And there's, of course, nothing wrong with that. But the big problem, if you look at then from kind of like from Finland and regional perspective, that if everybody just wants to maintain the status quo, which, basically, if you're working for a big organization, typically it's more about maintaining than
part of the system.
Yeah, exactly. You're part of the system and you're part of the maintenance, if you will. And not that all the big innovations and the disruption, typically big organizations are not about disrupting themselves. They're not about eating their own lunch. I mean, that was actually a big thing at HP, that always, the rule was that let's eat our own lunch, before somebody else eats it. So it's okay to create things that will compete and kill, existing.
The dog world, huh?
Yeah. Excuse me. But anyway, so then, we had to do something about this, that, everybody just wanted to maintain and, join like a big organization or something like that. So that's why we created Slush. We didn't create Slush to create, the biggest and best startup event on the planet, which of course it nowadays is. Last year we had 25,000 people from 160 countries at Slush in Helsinki in November, which is like a pretty big achievement, on its own.
I don't want to hear November, so to speak.
But I think that, the kind of like the point there is that we set out to change the mindset, change the attitude towards entrepreneurship. And kind of like then the metric there, like look at the impact of communities and all of this. Then the impact that we were looking for, we actually, it's a kind of like a never-ending, journey and process. But 5 years after Slush, went back to Aalto University, same talk about entrepreneurship, and then asking the same question that, okay, how many of you guys are going to join a startup or start a company? More than half the hands went up. So we did like a cultural revolution in like 5 years, which is like pretty amazing if you then know about how difficult it is to change like attitude and culture and all of that. So that's pretty cool. But the reason why it was possible was that the way we have been running Slush since the beginning, that it's about putting the young people in charge. So if you look at Slush last year, I mean, yes, we had 25,000 people from 160 countries, but the really cool thing about Slush is that it's all run by 2,600 volunteers, 2,600 young people from more than 60 countries, and they are actually doing it. They are running it, and that's actually a huge learning experience for everybody involved. I mean, you run Slush or you participate in Slush for like a year, 2, 3, and then you go out there and build the best startups. I mean, first you build the best startup event on the planet, and after that you go out there and build the best, like the world-beating like startups. And then we have many examples of that here in Finland already. So I think that this is again something that very difficult to measure, kind of like the impact of this in that it has created so many billions and so many trillions of like impact. But I think it's very clear that the impact has been massive. And here actually, like the long rambling about Slush and like this thing. Why is Slush called Slush? The whole brand describes actually what I just talked about, is that when you come to Helsinki in November, it's cold, it's dark, there is slush on the ground. So it's very, very clear immediately that it's not the Silicon Valley. It's better. And it's better because it's different. And I mean, this is the whole point about not copying. Everybody else, was running around and still to a large extent that, okay, we want to be the Silicon Valley of this, we want to be the Silicon Valley of that. So then one of my big things always has been that let's not do what everybody else is doing. Let's not be the Silicon Valley of this, Silicon Valley of that, but let's actually be different. And when you are different, many times you win, because different is many times better. And I think that this is super, super important. And
original. Staying original. You've been saying that it takes 5 years to make like mindset change, and this is how you evaluate.
Typically it can take like 10 or 100 years. So that's like the thing here, that it can be super, super difficult. And especially, I mean, if you try top down, that your government or your corporate leadership or whoever is telling you to do something, and then that typically is not maybe the most effective way. It has to come from the people. It has to come from the grassroots, and I think that this is something that is super important. And then my experience is that is the only way that you can actually create any kind of sustainable change. That it has to come from you, and it has to be about like what you want to do, not about what you are being told to do.
So I can hear there are some questions, and thank you for asking. I'm going to read them out, but I can hear that you having the Slush as a founding empowerment, that you bring the young people in driving seat, and then you have a purpose and clear brand, as you say, that it's not something. What you see is what you get. You get the Slush weather, but you have a different concept, right?
It's again like I think that you have to have something that you can identify with. I mean, you could also call it a global business summit, or like something like super boring like that. And I think that those kind of things that immediately tells many people that, I'm not, this global business summit is for important people, and I don't feel like I'm part of that crowd. I don't want to go there and hang out with all of these suits and all of these important people. I think that it has to be approachable, and I mean, again, that's kind of we started about talking about being approachable. I think that is also true for communities, that it needs to be approachable, it needs to be open, it can't be a club. I think that of course there is a room for these kind of like VIP like clubs and like exclusive like secret societies. I mean, there is a role for that as well, but it's not for everybody. And I think that this is something that is very important. And I think that it's also very, very like Finnish, and it's very Nordic, that we have very non-hierarchical like societies. And if you want to go and talk to, you know, a minister or the president or like the CEO or whatever, you know, just go and do it. And then, you know, they might not always be approachable, but for the most part, you know, they are. And I think that that's also like, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah. So, yeah, being egalitarian and approachable, I like that. This is a very big part of my talk as well. But also not to give up if and keep knocking on doors if you don't get the reply the first time. So Bambi Dang asks, what will the Finnish startup community look like after the crisis?
Yeah, good question. So I think that the first answer is that nobody knows. And then I would say that it will be what we make it to be. So I think that is also kind of like the thing, that there is no kind of like predefined like destiny or something like that. So I think that this is a little bit, if you look at, you know, again, also Slush and the history there. I mean, for Slush, we had 300 people show up, and then we had you know, founders, you know, fellow entrepreneurs sharing their experiences with you know, the participants. So we had Risto Siilasmaa, founder of F-Secure, okay, now chairman of Nokia. We had Ilkka Paananen, who was running Digital Chocolate at the time, but of course now everybody knows Ilkka because he started Supercell. Like launched as Slush, like was it 2 years later or something like that. And then we had Sampo Karjalainen, who started Sulake, you know, Habbo Hotel. We had Monty Videnius, founder of MySQL. We had Ilja Laus, who started a company called GetJar in Vilnius, Lithuania. So we're already like a bit international and global. We actually had Matt Marshall, who founded VentureBeat from Silicon Valley. So Matt was moderating kind of discussions, and the idea there was, of course, to get the message out about the startup community in Finland. So from the beginning, you know, communicating all the great things, all the great startups was very much part of like the Slush agenda. But then at the first Slush, I told everybody that this is going to become the biggest and best startup event on the planet. And then I was immediately like, hey, Peter, like, what about Silicon Valley? And they said, like, what about Silicon Valley? And then, you know, like the Cold and Mark and Slush around. So this is the whole point. But the important thing here is that very few people believe that would be the case. And now when we look at, you know, the startup community and the startup ecosystem, and we have the highest, you know, like venture capital, you know, deployed per capital, you know, so we're attracting a lot of capital to Finnish startups. And I think a lot of that is that everybody is coming to Slush. Why? Because everybody is there. And it's a little bit like, if you have the best startups at Slush, that means that all the best VCs, all the best investors, they have to be there, because that's their deal flow. That's like their opportunity to find these, you know, the next Supercell, the next Rovio, the next small giant, the next, you know, Linux and MySQL and like all of that stuff. So, you know, the next Bolt and TransferWise and the next Spotify and, you know, what have you. So we have, if you look at this, and I talk nowadays about the Finestbay area. So, I mean, the Helsinki, Tallinn, you know, at the center, but we have Stockholm, we have St. Petersburg to the east. So we have amazing like ecosystem. And we actually have the highest number of unicorn companies per capita here. So long answer, what the startup ecosystem will look like after the crisis, but I think that it will look the way we make it look. So it's up to us, you know, the whole ecosystem, the startup community here, to make it so. And I think that there is plenty of opportunity, and also maybe to like wrap that part up, that what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. So I really, really believe that we will see a lot of startups coming out of this crisis stronger than ever before, because the crisis is hitting, everybody globally, and it's not going to be easy for anybody. Why do easy?
It's expecting a lot, of course, bankruptcies and I don't know whatnot. But like Risto Silasma was saying in this first webinar on scenario planning, I don't know if you've seen it with Nordic Business Forum.
No, I haven't, but I know Risto and I know about
he mentioned
so
scenario planning is basically something that comes from the military. Why I'm not at all supporting military. I think we shouldn't have at all military in this world, but they know how to anticipate danger. I used to work in a shipping company, so I take my hat off to the captains going those rough seas, because they also know what is resilience and they need to be aware there's danger out there. But like, of course, it depends how people going to pivot their business and find the right people to do it. And when you look at the international students at the companies, there's another question here. What else could we do? Also a question to Bambi. Thanks, Bambi. What else could we do to bring more international students and people coming into Finland to start a business on a bigger scale? And that, I think, also shows there is a still limit to the startup community in Finland. Bring more diverse people to the arena.
Yeah, but I think that it's all about creating gravity, and I think Slush is a great example of creating gravity. One event now, 1 week, November, Helsinki, not the best time to visit if you look at the weather, but that's like the whole point, that let's not do an event in the summer and hope that it's going to be sunny, and let's hope that it's going to be almost like Silicon Valley. And I mean, this is the whole point, that almost as good is not good enough. We want to be kind of like best. And then the whole point there, if you look at then what does it take to be best, it actually only means that you need to be better than everybody else. It doesn't mean perfect, but it just means better. And as I said before, better, many times means being different. And I think that that is, again, those are important like ingredients here. But I think that we need to create more gravity. We need to attract more talent. And one way.
Peter, how can we do it now with the coronavirus? We cannot.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, the coronavirus is the same for everybody. So it's again, it's not. I think that the coronavirus is kind of like part of the current. It's like normal, and a lot of people now talking about the new normal. But I mean, there's like no new normal. It's just like normal. Normal is normal, and that's like we have to just like live in the world we live in. So that's just the way it is. And I think that then coronavirus it knows no border. So again. It's the same for everybody, and then of course we can like deal with it in different ways. So that's kind of like part of maybe the answer also. But I think that it's again a little bit like the Slush example, that if you have the best startups, then you can be absolutely sure that you will have the best investors. You will have the biggest investors, because I mean that's what they are looking for. So that is and when you have the best startups, you will end up with the best talent. I mean, the best talent wants to work with the best other talent, and the best other talent is typically at the best other like startups, best other companies. So I think that we have done a reasonably good job on having many of the best jobs available, and this is something that on the kind of like ecosystem side, like with the companies, the startups, we have done a big part of like our job of creating those opportunities. Then where we have failed miserably is on the public side. So we have maybe the most fucked up like immigration system, okay, maybe not anywhere, but let's say many places. So this is something that again we need to challenge on a daily basis, our immigration people, and that is one thing. Then we also, on a public sector, we have many challenges in the various, like education ministry in Finland, not the best one on the planet when it comes to opening up opportunity for people from the outside world. And I think that it's combination of many of these things that we have on the public sector that need to be best in the world. They can't be worst in the world or among the worst in the world. So there's a lot of these kind of things that we need to speed up. We need to be better. And I think that it took us many years and many governments to get to this, startup visa. But then in Finland it was implemented, and the branding is startup permit, which implies that you need a permit for everything in Finland, and maybe that is the truth and like a good case in point. But it's like super bad branding, and then the way it was implemented, very bureaucratic, very slow, super low ambition level, and it's not something that we can be proud of. So it took many governments, many years, and then the end result, pathetic. So we should look south. Our friends in Estonia, fantastic job. They have been doing much, much better. And I think that this is also why this whole, Finestbay area perspective of what we can do, Finland and Estonia, and then, like the region, what we can do together. So again, we need to have much better private public sector partnership in this area. And this is one thing that we are, we're known for having a pretty good setup in Finland when it comes to this. But again, we can't be super proud of where we're at in global comparison when it comes to this. Happiest nation or not, we are not the best when it comes to running efficient immigration system and talent like attraction.
Well, I think there is a lot to discuss. Of course, I've tried to be on the other side to also get the residence permit. I used to study in Denmark. So I went through these years of expecting and waiting for the visa to arrive, and then the green card, and then the residence permit. And working with international students today at the world's Nordics one of the top business schools at Hanken, don't have so many students, but we can get more students, and it's of course also being agile and really branding the school, branding the the country, and also allowing this immigration slow, fasten these things. But I think what I experienced last year with Citra Lab, this first innovation lab at the Finnish Innovation Fund, we went to London and we had met with different public policymakers who are doing these experimentation, systemic change, and they said there needs to be a birth of public entrepreneur who can make these public partnership projects run faster, and that requires new working cultures, requires new mindsets, which you just also talked a lot about, how you actually give birth to your mindset, and it needs your gravity, and of course your experience, and that you're just so resilient. And here you are, I think in Finland you are as connecting as dividing because of your resilient ideas, and you turn people off because you have these ambitious, getting 150,000 from abroad, international students from abroad within 4 years, using the best AI tools to speed up the applications, or you want the tunnel between Helsinki and Tallinn, and people would be like, get out of here, what is this going on? So how do you manage to keep on to it, and like you're so resilient, like what inspires you and what drives you, Peter?
Yeah, but I think that it's just like you have to believe in what you're doing, and then just kind of like when you do that, then of course you know that you are doing the right thing, and then then it's just always you will have people that disagree, but I think that's kind of like normal, and it's again it is what it is, and you just have to kind of like keep chipping away, and you have to kind of like then believe that you'll win in the end. So I think that's and my experience that's more often the case than not. So it's just that you have to kind of like keep at it, you have to keep doing, and basically not ignore kind of like the naysayers, but again, I mean, like engage in a dialogue, and then Also, I think that it's about leading by example. So you actually have to do stuff, and this point that you made about needing more like entrepreneurial mindset and all of that in government. I think that we actually need to have an entrepreneurial mindset and attitude everywhere. So it's not like a monopoly of the startups or anything like that. I think that we need to have more entrepreneurial thinking in bigger organizations and also in government. And I think that it's also one of these things that time tends to solve many of these problems. So again, we just have to wait for many of the people in our public sector to retire, and then the problem will go away. So we need to get more like young blood and new talent also into government. So I think that a lot of this is very much about the model that we have, that governments come and go, ministers come and go, but then the public servants in those ministries are forever. So this is it's of course good for running something very, very stable, but I think that the world is changing, and we need to cope with the changes, and the model that we have had so far is maybe not always the best to deal with fast changes. And I think that this crisis has been also very good at highlighting some of the not so efficient processes and ways of doing things. So I think that we need to always keep in mind that the government and the public sector is there for us, the people, and not the other way around. So this is also very, very important to always remember, and this should be kind of like obvious, but not even here in Finland is it always like obvious to all the people that government is there for us, not the other way around. And I know that there are many nations on the planet where kind of like the government is not there for you. It's like you are there for the government. But I think that we believe this kind of like model here that it's about we the people, and that's something that again we always need to remind the people we have elected and we have put in charge of running the country, that they are there to work with us, and that's kind of like the important point.
Yeah, I think we just celebrated World Press Freedom Day on the 3rd of May.
Yeah, and it's annoying that we're only number 2, but anyway, so yeah.
Yeah, but it has roots in Finland. They share Finnish, Swedish Anders Kudenius that pushed the law to actually allow people to speak openly on the state affairs. So I guess it's also the democratic praxis of questioning what kind of system we need, what kind of processes that promote the shared richness, prosperity, jobs, inclusion, diversity. I mean, all of the social benefits, but also that need to be more agile with the time. To this question, Bambi's asking, how can we make entrepreneurship a compulsory part of education? I mean, we have nuori yrittäjyys, right? You young entrepreneurs.
But I would say that it's already we're almost there. So I think that there is a lot of kind of like entrepreneurship and that kind of mindset built into the kind of like the Finnish curriculum, and we tend to kind of like then update and change our curriculum like every few years. So it's like constantly evolving. And I would say that if you look at kind of like the educational system here in Finland, that at least it doesn't kill initiative, it doesn't kill creativity like in many
autonomy.
Just look at many of the educational systems in Asia, that they are really all about killing initiative, killing creativity, and it's like this is how you do things, and this is how you not do things. So it's about telling people what to do and what not to do. So I think here at least people are kind of brought up, and our educational system is all about question everything. And I think that we when we have that, then that's already a very, very good foundation for entrepreneurship, that people are kind of like really educated and brought up to question things, and to also then be focused on solving real world problems. And I think that pretty happy with the model there, that it's all about learning, not teaching. So I think that always say that teachers in Finland are not teaching, the kids are learning, and then the teachers, for the most part, are about helping and enabling that learning to happen. So it's like a super important job, but teaching is not about telling people, it's about helping people understand and helping people learn. And I think that this is, again, these are kind of like subtle, and not so subtle things. But I think that good way of understanding kind of like the brilliance of many of the things that we have in education in Finland is actually when you look at how it's done in other places. So always we should do benchmarking, and this also comes back to this government side and public sector side, that we should always then to be best, we don't need to be perfect, but we need to be better than others, so we can learn from how are other people doing it, how can we do the same, how can we do better. And I think that this is something that we do. Yeah,
that's right. So it's a recurring message I have from these 6 episodes, Peter, is ideas are worth sharing. And ideas, as you said, the ideas what the world needs, but it requires a person to come out with that little bit of courage to share that idea, and not to give up on your dream, or not to give up on the thought. I mean, we're talking about people don't know how to dream, but they get ideas. And that could be the starting point to plant a seed, and make a community come out of it, right? And so what you also say well is, one thing is you have an idea, you build up yourself in whatever environment, be resilient, but then you also have to get it done. And I think that's a big message to any young people, to anyone who is a starter. We want to change the world, but we also need to do work to change the world. There's a lot of people who want to change the world, but they don't want to do anything about it. They just want to be known for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So to be a completer is a big challenge in our very short-term reality. But also then to have the nice branded community. I get what you're saying right now. Of course, we need to be clear that, what if it's a branded community, if it's a business for some, what are the relationships, social contract or psychological contract with the employer volunteers? I know there's been something on Slush in that respect, but I think it's good to really show the differences of, we want companies to become branded communities. We want them to offer that message, as you say, and walk the talk.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. In reality, I want all companies to be inclusive. They're safe. You, as yourself, you make people safe around you, and you also benefit from that collective learning. And I'm sure you're going to find those change makers in Africa and Uzbekistan who will be there because you give that space. So I think that's a beautiful message. So I thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you, and we should keep in mind that Finland is like the gateway to Africa for Uzbekistan. So it's just, we can't do anything about like our geography. We just happen to be here, like in the middle, at the center of everything.
Oh, there, exactly, it's in the middle. And there are a lot of paradoxes. I always say an anecdote about Finland. I said, okay, Finland, people don't do small talk as much, but Finland is an export country for successful festivals, successful events, and that Slush is definitely one of them. Nordic Business Forum. We have what else we had, which was exported. I guess Startup Sauna. I don't know if it went beyond.
We the whole region, but that's
we had Flow Festival. Flow Festival also went abroad. So I guess that's about the package and the promise and the process behind any networking event that is so strong. So even Finland, which is known to be very humble, reserved, can deliver kick-ass events which are about networking. So keep on dreaming. I would believe community is our future. And what's your last message, Peter? Why do we need to rise in unity together? Why do we need to?
I don't know if I have any was already like rambling on like a lot. So if I like messages, but I think that it's again it's about getting stuff done, and I think that's what it's like all about in the end, and I think that best way to kind of like again the question about the future of the startup community and like everything, and what I kind of like already answered there, that it will be what we make it to be, and this is like what I think Alan Kay was actually the guy who originally said that the best way to to predict the future is to create it, and that is what it's all about. That I always say that the best thing about the future is that there's something that you can do about it. So it's not like totally unknown from that perspective. So I think that's what it kind of boils down to.
Right. Thank you. So apart from not alone, you are there, and together we can rise in unity. So thank you, Peter. Take care, and see you everyone next Wednesday. Stay tuned. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.